All right, yeah, I'm gonna hit live because we need to.
Yep, that's fine. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. But yeah, we're running a bit behind today because Dan's computer decided. Oh, we dropped frames for some reason. That's strange. I don't know why.
Did you give me the YouTube link?
Yeah, one sec.
Okay.
I'm rebooting it. I don't know why that.
This podcast was not meant to be.
Everything is going wrong. Okay, we're back. I have no idea what's happening.
That's what I say every morning when I wake up. All right, tweet is sent.
So Microsoft just dropped some news. I don't know how major it is, but we'll talk about it at the top of the show. They've just put a blog post out, a principled approach to app pinning and app defaults in Windows. So I guess I'll talk about that just at the top of the show real quick.
I'm zooming up my camera a bit because I'm way too close. There, is that better framing for you?
Yeah, that's nice. Excuse me.
All right. Got the notes. Where's my phone? Going off. Stupid to-do. All right, sound recorder. All right, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 304 for March 17th, 2023. Hey everyone, Dean Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. This week we're going to be talking again about AI, as Microsoft had some major announcements this week regarding Office. We'll talk about what that means there, how cool it is, and what more we could expect. Related to that, GPT-4 is here. And we'll talk about that and what it means for Bing Chat. Dell, out of nowhere, announced a new ARM laptop, and it has a really good price tag. And we'll discuss that one because the story actually did really well on the site. So it seems like there's a lot of interest in that one. I did get to review the HP Dragonfly Pro, which is a interesting laptop, one that I thought was going to be boring and I wouldn't like, but turns out I kind of liked it more than I anticipated, although it's definitely not perfect. We also have a few other reviews that went up, including a new all-in-one and the Razer Edge and Razer Edge 5G. All that and more on today's podcast. Zach, how are you doing on this so far interesting Friday podcast?
I am not too bad. It was a surprisingly busy week once again, thanks to Microsoft and its obsession with AI. It doesn't seem to be slowing down. Though that said, at this point, and we will get into it in a minute, but what else is there to announce? Like, they've done Bing, they've done Office. It's got to be Windows, right? And that's personally what I'm most interested in, of course.
Windows, and they had to do something with Microsoft Launcher.
Oh,
Launcher hasn't seen anything interesting in months.
I want a dedicated event just for Microsoft Launcher. I want Microsoft to fly press in, like a super secret event. Let's talk about Launcher.
What they need, and so I guess we'll just start talking about it. By the way, we did have some issues with this podcast, which was, yeah, for some reason my computer rebooted with a Windows update, and now I don't have a Wi-Fi 6 driver or Bluetooth driver. Luckily, I managed to find a tiny Bluetooth dongle that I just happen to have nearby. I don't know if that's related to be fair, it might not be the Microsoft update. I did have the power went out twice this week, and so I don't know if it's a power surge or something like that. Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I'll have to investigate that. I don't know what there's to investigate. There's, I tried updating drivers, rebooting, nothing worked. So anyway, yeah, let's get to the AI stuff and talking about, well, yeah, Microsoft Launcher, it hasn't been updated in forever. It hasn't had any new features or anything remotely interesting. And we're not even talking about the Duo. We're talking just about the standard Android version. What I want to see, they have the Bing app or the Start app. They have two for some reason that are almost the same, but they technically have little minor differences between them. And you can now use their widget, their search widget, and if you tap the microphone there, it will use the new Bing chat, which is cool if you have access to it. But what I want is just like a little icon, like a widget that's an icon. You've seen those before too, right? Like they just make it and just have it as the Bing button, so I could have it on my lock screen or whatever, my home screen. Because right now it's like Microsoft Launcher's searches the phone. And it turns out I use that all the time. But Microsoft Launcher's microphone button uses just Bing's old voice thing.
Right.
So if I want to use Bing Chat, I gotta pin the Bing UI search bar to it, and that thing doesn't search the phone. So it's really annoying. It's like, come on, Microsoft Launcher. We've given you a couple of weeks already, but I mean, how hard can this be? Like, well, I don't know. What's the team up to? Anyway, let's move to the Office stuff because this is actually real now. We knew about this event. It was announced a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't going to be, it was broadcast live, like a video event on LinkedIn, but it wasn't like a thing for press to show up. But Zach, why don't you and Sean did all the news around this stuff. I briefly paid attention to it, but what was announced? What did Google announce as well, too? Because they also tried to elbow their way into this on the same day. But yeah, tell us what's new.
Yeah, so essentially Microsoft is doing what it did with Bing, and it's introducing AI capabilities into its suite of productivity apps within Office. So, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, and whatever else falls under the Office umbrella these days. It's quite a lot. But essentially, they're introducing Copilot for Office, or Copilot for Microsoft 365 is what they call it. And it functions very similarly, if not more advancedly, if that's a word, than the Copilot that you can get in Bing. So obviously, Bing has the Copilot experience that aids you with searching the internet. It can gathering loads of data. You can ask it to be creative. You can ask it to do a bunch of other things, and Bing can do that. But now we're getting Copilot in, say, Office, which can help you write an essay or a document. Basically, you just give it natural language prompts, and Word will spit out a result. And obviously, that result will depend on the context you give it, what information it should be looking up, what tone, and then it can also do further edits. So in addition to the output it spits out, Word will be like, hey, would you like to adjust this in any which way? And you can tell it, again, with natural language, yeah, this paragraph here needs to be a bit more concise, this paragraph here could be more elaborated on, etc., etc. And yeah, it's a huge deal. That's just an example in Word. Outlook, for example, is getting the ability to analyze and reply to emails, so you won't have to spend all day typing away at boring email responses. You can just say, hey, Copilot, reply to this email saying that, yep, I approve, this is great, with a happy tone, but highlight the key issues we are worried about, referring to another document. That's another interesting thing here. They've shown off the ability to basically, again, use natural language and say to the Copilot, hey, refer back to this document we had open last week. And a drop-down menu will appear with all the documents you had open last week. And you'll be able to click into whichever document you want there. And the Copilot will be able to analyze that other document and bring that in as context for whatever text it's generating as a reply or as a piece of text in Word. PowerPoint's getting the ability to look at other documents and create entire presentations. So where was that when I was in school? That would have been amazing. You always get those coursework or assignments where it's like, hey, you need to write a 5,000 word essay. And then at the end of it, you've got to do a presentation. This would have been life-saving for me when I had to do that in school many years ago. But yeah, you can write that 5,000 word essay using Copilot now, although I guess maybe Copilot won't let you write an entire essay using it. Or maybe it will, we don't know. That's the other thing about all this stuff. Unlike the Bing stuff, which was made available almost immediately, in air quotes preview, a lot of this stuff is a bit further out. It was very clearly all concept work. It was no live code at all. So although Microsoft does says they're testing it with 20 customers, I think what they meant is 20 businesses or partners, not just 20 customers. But yeah, this looks to be much further out, and it will likely roll out to enterprise customers first before personal users. But yeah, the PowerPoint will be able to do that, so it could analyze all that information and generate not only information from those documents, but entire designs. You can tell it, hey, I want to design this in the form of like a throwback 1940s style, this, that, and the other, and it will use text, fonts, and all that other stuff based on that era if it knows how to do that. So yeah, this is more of what we've been seeing from Microsoft over the last month, quite literally. Started in February. They were like, hey, we got some stuff to show you, and the ball's just kept rolling since. And it doesn't look like it's going to stop. Though, as we just mentioned at the top of the show, where do they go next? They've got it in Office now. They've done it in Bing. Arguably Windows, right? But I don't know if Microsoft is ready to talk about Windows just yet. We may start hearing some more stuff about AI in Windows in May. We may start. I didn't mean to do that, but in May. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was also going to say there was a lot of other stuff announced along this week with AI, but yeah, the Office stuff is super intriguing, right? Like, yeah, I'm with you. Had I had this stuff in school, it would have been amazing. It's a little weird because it's like back in the day, knowing how to make a PowerPoint was itself a skill, right?
Yeah.
Like some people are just way better at it than others, and now it seems like you don't need to have that skill. There's also something a little bit strange. I believe Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, pointed out it's a little bit strange to write a bunch of bullet points, have AI convert that into a presentation or an email, and then someone on the other end is going to get that email or presentation, then ask it to summarize it into bullet points. It's like, what are we doing? But that's kind of the future, right? The other half of this, it was some criticisms I noticed, not particularly to Microsoft nor the implementation here. It's just the fact that we're going to enter a future, and South Park kind of made fun of this a little bit. We're entering a future where you may be receiving correspondences from people, and you don't know if they technically really wrote it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, say someone passes away in your family, or, something bad happened, and someone, like, emails you or messages you, and it's, like, a really, like, well thought out, kind of long, thing, and you're like, oh, thank you, that was so nice of you. And it's like that person who was just like, sad bereavement, wish you well, make it sincere, and the thing generates it and sends it. That was kind of like the joke, of course, I mentioned last week with South Park, where one of the kids was using it to write like love stuff to his girlfriend. Right. But like that's literally what's going to kind of happen, right? It's just like, and then we're going to take these sort of long things and then use AI to, again, shorten it, give me a summary, put it into bullet points. It's like, what are we doing with information anymore? I'm not necessarily against the idea. I think it's more funny than anything, because ultimately I kind of don't care. Fundamentally, what we're talking about here is human communication. And so long as the intent is there and what you're trying to say in that message, and the person's receiving it and then gets the message themselves and the data that they need, who technically cares who wrote it, right? If it's your thoughts in there, if it's, your ideas, that's technically all that matters. It's not that much different than if you read a book and it's like ghost written by someone, or you always see this with like famous people, like, I don't want to pick on like Pamela Anderson. I assume she probably has a book out. She probably wrote a book, but then they have like a secondary writer who is just like takes it all and actually does the writing and converts it. Like, that made me seem like a crutch, but for one, a lot of people aren't good at writing. I don't really consider myself good at writing. I'm good at formalizing things in the message, I think, but in terms of actual grammar, right, I'm not very good. But like, if you were to read that book, the information you get from it is presumably all true and accurate, and still the story she wanted to tell about her own life, right? And I think that's where we're headed down with AI. I think it's just super interesting and kind of weird that we're going down this. But like, using it in Excel is super fascinating. You have a
Yeah.
long spreadsheet and you could just ask it to like, you know, summarize this information, or did we lose money last quarter, and like all this kind of stuff. I think is really kind of a neat tool out there. And I like the branding that they're doing for this too. It's called Microsoft Copilot. And we've heard that before. It's used with GitHub, but it's capital C Opilot, no dash, no capital P. They're very specific. Joe Belfiore was very specific about this. But I kind of like the name Microsoft Copilot, right? Because one, it makes sense. You could think of it, that's what it is. It's a copilot there to assist you. Two, it kind of has a name now, but it's not like a human name, right? It's a tool. It's a tool that's going to help you.
Yeah.
Uh, and it differs in the name from Bing Chat, which is a chat system, right? So I kind of like the branding that they're doing around this stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think it's like a non-personal name for it, and that's kind of what they wanted to skip away from, right? They could have called it Cortana, but they haven't. They chose to go with
Yeah,
something that doesn't like, it's not a name. You wouldn't call somebody co-pilot. That's a title, more or less, right? That's a job,
yeah,
and that's what this AI's job is to be your co-pilot. Now, the phrase co-pilot itself is interesting because, of course, it does imply that it's your second in command. You are in charge. You are doing this, that, and the other. You're doing the bulk of the work. But co-pilots can actually do all the work in real life as well. A co-pilot can
sure.
take off a plane, they can fly a plane, they can land a plane if they need to. And I think, and I've seen lots of people concerned about this. And honestly, I guess I can see where they're coming from in regards to, with Bing, they're putting in sort of, or trying to put in safeguards so that you can't just get Bing to do everything for you. And
Yeah.
again, the stuff that they showed off at the event yesterday was all concepts, and we haven't had hands-on with it, so we don't know its full extent or if there are any safeguards. I'm sure there are going to be some safeguards. But a lot of the stuff that they were showing off, there's no barriers. You can ask Word to do what you want it to do, and it will do it as best as it can. And this may be a problem. Obviously, there'll be ways to lock this down. So schools, if you're using Word at a school, for example, obviously this AI stuff probably won't be enabled. But that's not stopping you from going home and writing essays at home on your own personal computer using this AI stuff. And the problem really is, assuming a school doesn't catch it, which, again, we've talked about this, there are tools now that schools are using where they can catch AI-generated content. Whether it's 100% successful or not is another story entirely. But in those chances where those can slip through, it's possible that lots of future kids and future generations are going to have such small what's the word? Everyone's on TikTok these days, and like no one has time to watch anything, and everyone's going through
Attention span.
Attention span, that's it. I don't know why I went blank on that. Everyone's attention span is going to be so small because no one's going to be paying attention to anything. You'll get an essay from school. You'll be like, right,
True.
here's your assignment. You'll just say, hey, Word, write that up for me. It will do it, and then you'll maybe skim it to make sure it's not sounding ridiculous. And then you'll hand it in. That's not learning. That isn't learning. And the future generations of humanity are going to be much worse off as a result. Because, it's this last 2 years, learning from home, lots of kids had to learn from home because of the pandemic. Right. I think most of them would say that they didn't learn as much because they were distracted by doing other things on their computer versus being in a classroom, paying attention to a teacher. And I think this is just going to make this situation worse, and people are just going to learn less as a result because they're not paying attention. It's one thing. People say writing in a book is better for you than typing up on a computer because you actually take more of the information in.
Right.
Now this is going to be even more worse because now I'm just giving it basic bullet points and it's doing everything else for me. Like, I don't think that's good.
I was just going to mention that, and it's good you brought it up, that for facilitating learning, there's a lot of research out there. Verbally discussing something helps, to learn,
Yeah.
to talk with another person. It's one reason I had issues in grad school. When I was not in grad school, no one cared about the work I was doing or could understand it. So I tried to talk to them about it, but I couldn't have like a conversation. And, we do this too, even at our company here, right, with Windows Central. Like, we have a lot of video meetings, but the point there is because when you discuss things with people, it tends to facilitate ideas and learning, and new things come up, and you're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And that's why collaboration is important. But so that's one level. Then you're right. Another level is like typing things. But then the best way to learn is like handwriting something out, which is why pen and ink is super interesting in digital form. But they said, like, when you're learning stuff, like if you go like I used to take notes And like I used to handwrite notes in class, and then I'd take those notes and then I would convert them to, I would type them out. And by doing that, it helped like you memorize that stuff. It's also, there's also dumb things like if you do your notes or study in the classroom where you receive the information from, you're more likely to recall, just
Yeah,
because the brain, does how it works. But like you're right. So if we switch to this AI stuff, like how are people really thinking about this stuff? Because when
exactly.
you're writing and coming up with ideas and stuff like that, or trying to formulate things, that's the process of it going to memory. And we already know part of the issue, at least in the US school system, is a lot of it is memorization of facts, but not necessarily learning. I've been driving this home for years about like even the scientific method, how people are just really poor at analyzing data. Like
Yeah.
you can just give them things and they don't know how to break it down or objectively question things. So yeah, I also don't want to be too doom and gloom about this, because every time there is a technological thing, like when computers
Of
came out,
course.
people said the same thing, right? Like, oh, now everybody's gonna be dumbed down. That might be true to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
but there's also like, but that's what that is my big frustration with the internet, right? It's like there's a lot of dumb people out there who don't know answers to things, who will then, especially on social media, will just spout off and say the wrong thing, even though at their fingertips they literally have all the world's knowledge. It's
Yeah.
absolutely insane. Like, you know what people would have like 100 years would have go, like go have done with all this? Like, yeah, you can literally look up anything at an instant, and within not even seconds, it just will appear on the screen, and you can just read it all and take it in, and like it's insane. And so many people don't make use of it, or rather, like they don't know how to sift through it all in a way to make sense of it. It's stuff like I said you learn in grad school, but it should be stuff that's taught in high school. And I don't know how that gets better with AI.
Yeah.
We're all just walking around. All we're doing then is just getting computers to do work
To
for us. The
talk to each
human just
other.
goes up to
Yeah.
enter things,
Yeah.
and the computer's doing all the work, and the computers are basically talking to themselves, and the humans are just glancing. It's like I mentioned last week with the South Park thing again. Like there was a point where Stan was doing this so much, then he was sitting down with Wendy, and Wendy was bringing up stuff that he wrote that he had no idea
Yeah.
that he
Yeah. Yeah.
wrote, because the AI was writing it. And she's like, "That was really, I was really proud of you to bring up that story that happened in your childhood." And like, it sounded almost like like, something really bad happened, and like, and he had no idea what she was talking about. So it's like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. That said, for the emails,
Yeah.
summarization of your emails,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that's
I was
kind of
gonna
cool.
say, yeah, there's certainly elements to it that are actually useful and really great, such as the ability to reply to. I think replying to emails is a good one. Like that's cool because
Yeah.
a lot of emails you got to reply to is sort of so mundane, and it's often the same email you're replying to lots of different people. Especially if you work in our business where you're either saying yes to things or no to reviewing a certain thing, or sorry, that's not something we focus on. Having an AI that can just do that for you is going to be really nice. Same for things like PowerPoint design. That PowerPoint is, especially in an academic sense, the whole point of PowerPoint really is to show off your presenting skills more than how well you can make a PowerPoint look nice. So AI there is going to be great
Right.
as well. Same for Excel. I think AI and Excel is going to be probably the strongest contender there because I
Sure.
think most people don't know how to use Excel. It's quite a complex application, and the data you put into it is not something you're going to really be using AI for, but you can use AI to help format that or present it in certain ways. That's going to be fantastic. But Word's the real concern for me personally, is because that's primarily
Yeah.
a creative application. That's something that you're opening to do your own work in, and getting an AI to do it for you is a little bit iffy for me. So everywhere else, I think it's great. And also the ability to have the AI cross-reference between different documents, that's also fantastic. Using natural language to just be like,
That
hey,
was cool.
yeah, that's a really cool idea. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of functionality is what we see come to Windows, being able to do that across the system rather than just across Office. So that's really
Just for
interesting.
those curious, so what Zach's referring to is you can actually give it like two different documents, like one in an
Yeah,
Excel and then one in a Word, and then you can be like, hey, convert this into a PowerPoint presentation using my voice, and it'll take all that info and do that.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, there's and there's an interesting point there you brought up regarding the PowerPoint stuff. It's like, we're just saying how like no one's going to know how necessarily make a PowerPoint in the future because that used to be a skill. But then there's this bigger question like, is that a skill
No, yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah,
worthy
yeah.
to have? Like we needed it. It was like it was something you can like, put on your resume, like I'm a master at, PowerPoint. But like, is that something we should be wasting our time on doing if the point of the PowerPoint is to convey information? Like, I don't mind giving presentations, but I don't want to sit and have to do up
The
make the
design, yeah, yeah.
presentation up, right?
Mm.
I know the information, I know what I want to say. Yeah, why not have a computer? Like, why do I have to waste my time to do that? I think the same thing, I'm hoping with video happens in the future. That's a joke within our company too. That like, years ago we had Mark Wim doing our video editing, and then he left the company, and we just never got around to hiring another video editor. Slash, it's hard to find someone that I could work with that closely and that's local and all that. And the company was kind of like, well, why don't you learn video editing? I'm like, dude, I'm in my 40s, like, and I work a full-time job. Like, if they first of all, if the company wanted to give me at least half of Mark's salary on top of mine to do video editing, sure. But they didn't. So like, what's the incentive? But like, it's not something growing up and doing video editing wasn't something, I was exposed to. I know roughly how to do it, but like to become good at it, like is a thing it's a hobby. You have to devote time to it, which I don't have, nor to have much interest. I'm sure I'd actually be good at it because I used to do, and I still do a lot of photography and cinematography and stuff. So, but if I can get AI, so that's one reason why we don't do a lot of videos on YouTube anymore. It's just because of that. But like, can I shoot things? Yeah. Would it be cool if AI would just give it the video clips and be like, string this together, make the interesting video, put some B-roll here and like it just does it for you. We're a couple years away from that. But like, why should I be wasting my time learning how to edit when, if AI could do it for me? Meanwhile, you still get the content. You still get, oh, Dan is talking here. Maybe you want to hear that. So I think a lot of this stuff is going to be good. This idea of like it doing AI eventually doing menial tasks that we all have to do. We've talked about this also with Windows Central about how all websites have to have these like SEO type articles, best this, best that, this versus that. Here's a buying guide. And the reason for that is one is to help people, obviously. You want to present good information, but it's also because it's about commerce and it's about people buying things through you and all this kind of stuff. But it's not fun writing that stuff. Like if you got into technology and want to write stuff, like writing those articles is extremely boring because you can't really editorialize. It's not your voice usually. Why not have AI do that stuff, right?
Mm.
So I'm hoping, I'm actually, that's why when it comes to our job, I'm actually thinking, yeah, actually I do want AI to do some of these BS type
Yeah.
things that we have to do every day.
I will say that if this keeps up and then because every company's going to have AI products, every single one. It's not just going to be Microsoft. Google's already getting in there. Google is sort of doing the same thing in Google Docs right now with AI and whatnot. The future of software UX is just going to be a text box. There's going to be no toolbars and no. When you open an app, it'll just be a text box. Or maybe the future of Windows is a text box, and you just type what you want. I want to write this word. I want to write this essay in Word or something or another. You hit enter, Word comes up, and it's already there. Like this is kind of the sort of stuff that could happen using AI if it continues to advance in the way that it's doing. What you mentioned there about the whole video editing thing made me realize that all this stuff does seem amazing on paper, and it really is. Like we'll talk about Chat GPT-4 in a minute. But you have to remember, especially like this AI in Office, for example, within these applications, the AI has been built to understand how to use these pieces of software. There's no general AI that can just work programs yet. You can't ask an AI to edit this video for me in Premiere Pro, for example. It doesn't know how to use Premiere Pro. This is the barrier between what we've got now currently and then the real AI or general AI or whatever it's called?
Yeah, general intelligence.
Yeah,
General artificial intelligence.
Being able to tell an AI to use another piece of software that it's never seen before and have it look up data on the internet to be able to learn that program in real time, that would be amazing. But we're nowhere near that yet, I don't think.
What Zach's referring there, GAI, is this, it's a theoretical concept that's debated whether or not it's even achievable. But the idea behind it is, this is like it's almost indistinguishable, or is indistinguishable from a human in terms of
Uh-huh.
what it can do. Like you can talk to it, it can argue with you, it could debate, it could do tasks for you, and has, it's a little bit more scary. That's the one that everybody's kind of worried about in terms of like taking over the world and all that kind of stuff. Um, where we're just talking about specific AI and tools. Like no one's concerned that AI and Outlook is going to somehow start a nuclear war. But GAI is a whole different level. That's kind of out there, and
Yeah.
and there's still something left to be said. Even like when I was just talking about video editing, like I'm not talking about like whole movies, and there's obviously an artistic expression in editing and cinematography that AI might not be able to capture. It would be able to do some of it, right? But not quite to the level of what a human could do,
Yeah.
because humans ultimately feel emotion. And a lot of times when you're doing editing, emotion is part of that process. And it's not clear AI could do that. But I'm just talking about like basic video stuff, right? I think that will happen actually really quickly. Like, just like how we used to have like my favorite app ever, Movie Maker, Windows Movie Maker.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was kind of like, it was like that without the AI, but it was this idea of like drop and go and to just kind of edit things, like here's a transition for you. And the photo editor thing on on Windows 11 now kind of has some of this as well. Or Clipchamp, right? Clipchamp does a lot of this. But I think it's going to get even better with AI in the future. Like
Yeah.
it's already kind of cool if you think about how like with machine learning, even on like what OneDrive and specifically Google Photos does. Like, I don't know if you do, but like every day I get that notification, like,
Yeah.
like, here's your dog and cat. And then it's like a little movie and it's like music playing and it's zooming in and out and stuff like that. But that's like peanuts compared to what's going to be coming. But that's sort of an example of,
Yeah.
I mean, that's already kind of impressive if you think about it.
Yeah, I also want to briefly mention real quick that there was in the news this week, Microsoft has laid off its ethics AI or AI
Right.
ethics team, which is quite interesting and sort of
It's
adds
one of
fuel.
the teams.
One of the
Yeah.
teams. It does add fuel to the fire in regards to, is Microsoft or in general, are these tech companies being sensible in how quickly and how sort of forcefully they're rolling out this AI stuff? Because I don't know about if it's just me or maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but I didn't see any of this AI stuff coming. Like if you told me in November 2022 that next year was going to be the year of AI, I would have been like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? I knew that ChatGPT was around and people were using like novel AI. I've heard about novel AI many times. And people have been using that to create like fun stories and stuff, and that's been a thing for I feel like ages. But it never felt like it was so like becoming such a big part of technology and human life. It was just like a cool additional tool that you could use if you wanted. But out of nowhere, it just happened, and I don't know how it didn't leak. Like Microsoft was doing any of this. Nobody I knew at Microsoft knew that all this was coming in the way that it has. Um, I don't know. I don't know where it's come from, and it seems to be so sudden. And I'm worried, and a lot of people are worried that these tech companies aren't doing this correctly. They're just throwing it out there without really caring about the effect on humanity and society, not just now, but in the future. It could be that we're laying the groundwork for a terrible time in the future. Whereas, I don't think it's going to be immediately bad for us today. But who says in 10 years or whatever, right? Like, who knows how much this is going to affect workforces and the mind's ability to pay attention to things and people's ability to write. If we're not writing stuff anymore, then we're not going to know how
But
to write because we've got AI doing it for us. Like
to be fair, there's literally never been a moment in history where new technologies come out that everybody step back and like, whoa, let's analyze this first. We'll come up with a bunch of
sure, yeah,
guidelines before we
yeah,
put.
yeah,
It's literally people just put stuff out there. We invented this, now it's out there. That kind of thing. And eventually, maybe government comes in and does some regulations. Also, to be fair, Microsoft does have its responsible AI group, which has not been laid off. That's actually a pretty big group, and they bring in philosophers and all sorts of people, and they set the guidelines for this stuff and discussion. So the team that was laid off was the team that was between the responsible AI group, at least from how I understand it, and the product teams. And
yeah,
this group was meant to basically help translate that information and those guidelines to the product team. Now, Microsoft, according to the reporting, this was from Platformer, that before a lot of the people were dispersed and put on other teams. So I think so instead of being like a central group that then interfaced with a bunch of the products, a bunch of those people went, I think, to work on those specific products as sort of like the AI kind of person. Then there was a group of like 7 that was left that was just going to be kind of left, but even then they were like laid off. So uh, presumably Microsoft feels confident in this because they made a big deal. And if you type in responsible AI, Microsoft, you go to the website, everything is public and published, you can go read about it. Like, presumably they feel confident that what they're doing is still going to guarantee. They've been pretty outspoken about this idea of like guardrails and, making sure that AI stays within the limits, which is why people get mad. Like, why are you limiting access to Bing Chat? Well, one of the reasons is so they can modify it. Why are you putting oh, it used to be cool, then they put restrictions on how many turns you can take. Yeah, well, because they want to make sure it's doing the right thing and not going crazy. So this is part of that process. So of all the companies, I see Microsoft being the most ethical here. That's not to say, though, there are, as you point out, larger repercussions. But technically, no one knows what that's going to be, right?
Sure.
I've told you about this Twitter and website before called the Pessimist Archive, and it just goes through and documents every technological innovation for like the 150 years and like the press reaction to it. Like, it was just like, TV is going to ruin people, bicycles going to ruin people, telephones are going to ruin people. Literally, I'm not kidding. Like, it was articles have been written about all those technologies and how they were going to like ruin people / destabilize society. And it was just like, so we do always go through this stage of like thinking of the worst that's going to happen. But then as other people are pointing out here, everybody kind of adapts, so the world will shift. We'll lose some of these lower end jobs, but then people will find other ways to do things. Like, if I don't have to waste my time being a master of PowerPoint, I can maybe devote more time to being actually good at my actual craft and studying that instead of having, because we both have like, more management type jobs now. And like the higher you go up, the more stuff, it's a more like junk you have to do. It almost feels like, so the more you can automate that, the more time I can devote to like doing real work, more creative work.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the benefit of all this stuff comes in. I think we'll be fine. I'm not really worried about like, and this takes, like I said, in 1999, I ran the first digital projector on the East Coast. It was up in Albany, New York. And we were told, digital projection is going to wipe out film projection within 3 to 4 years. And like George Lucas was pushing this and everything. It was going to be massive. It took 15 years for that to happen. And during that 15 years, I worked as a union projectionist, made a living, and had a blast. Eventually it did, right? But it took a real long time for that to happen because there's just a lot more numbers in place. And now, digital projection exists, but now there's people whose job it is to service digital projectors, which is a science in of itself. So, I don't know. I'm not too pessimistic on this stuff, but you're right. There are going to be things that pop up, and there's going to be friction, let's put it, as society adopts this stuff.
I will say Microsoft has designed the stuff in our Office, at least, so to depend on a human being present for it to function. Like, it's not just automated. You can't just tell Outlook to reply to all your emails as they come in. You have to click into each email and tell it what to do. So you still kind of have to read the email yourself, and a human still needs to be present to assist the Copilot in doing its job, which is, I think, a key design choice there, because they could have very easily just written a tool that says, right, you can tell Copilot to just read your emails and automatically reply to them how it deems fit. I don't see why that couldn't have been done technologically, but Microsoft hasn't built that into Outlook because that could be problematic, and especially for businesses, right? If businesses could just hire, or air quotes hire, or program an AI to do all the email for a bunch of employees, they're in trouble. Like, that's not good. So Microsoft isn't giving those companies and bosses and managers the tools to be able to do that. You still need to pay a human being to sit in the chair and tell the AI what to do. But whether or not that lasts, I don't know. Hopefully that's the barrier that they keep in place so that people don't lose their jobs over this, because an AI that can't do anything because there's no human to drive it is a poor AI. So it still needs a human at the end of the day.
Yep. In other related news to this, Edge Production now has the Bing button in the toolbar, which gives you access to Bing Chats, Bing Insights, and Bing Compose. Although it's funny, I just went over it and it says I'm not online.
Well, that's curious.
It's not working at all.
You are
weird.
definitely online.
Yeah. Well, anywho. And the other good news is it appears, although there's been no formal announcement around this, that there's no longer a wait to sign up for this. In other words, if you go to bing.com//new, I believe is the website,
Mhm.
and you link up your Microsoft account saying you want to enter, apparently people are just getting in right away. We've had a couple confirmations of people who did this, and it doesn't seem any longer to be a queue. So there still apparently is a queue in the formal sense that you still need to go sign up for it to get access versus just giving everyone access to it. But looks like you can get them pretty quickly, which kind of makes sense since they're shipping this now in production edge. So a lot
Yeah.
of people are going to get it, and it's like, well, I can't do anything with it. So that's kind of cool. I should also point out Richard Devine, one of our writers, found an extension called Bing Chat History, which is exactly what it sounds like. It maintains a history of your Bing chats so you can go back to them later on. I imagine this is something Microsoft may later incorporate, since it already does things like collections and stuff. But that's a neat way to sort of save your chats if you want to later reference them. There was also a related story. We didn't cover it, but I thought it was kind of cool. And I don't know the status of it, but a guy decided to ask Chat GPT. It was like, I have $100. I'm going to act as the interface between you and the real world. I want to start a business. Tell me what to do with this $100 to make more money, and I'll do whatever you say. And he started a website, and it was based on a certain, I think it was ecological products or something like that. I think it's good for the environment, and it told him how to build the website. It helped him choose the graphics for the website, the name of it. Like, and I don't know if he's making money yet, but I was like, damn, that's an awesome idea. But it goes to show you how powerful this stuff can kind of be for a lot of people,
Yeah.
and the kind of world we're entering here.
On the subject of Bing and ChatGPT, we should also briefly talk about the new ChatGPT 4, which was announced this week by OpenAI. It's a more advanced, more creative version of ChatGPT 3.5. We won't go into specifics because I haven't really had the chance to use it at all, to be honest. But we know it's multimodal in the sense that you can now give it images, and it can analyze images and output answers based on whatever image you give it. So you can say, hey, what's this image? And it can say, hey, that's a horse. You can say whatever else, using images in addition to text, and it can do stuff using images now. So that's pretty interesting as well. But what's more interesting, I think, is that Microsoft finally confirmed. It was always the rumor, right? Ever since it was rumored that Bing was coming with AI, the rumors always said it's based on ChatGPT 4. Then when Bing
Yeah.
Chat was announced, Microsoft wouldn't say what version of ChatGPT
Yeah.
it was based on. I think somebody was quoted saying it's based on a more advanced version of ChatGPT 3.5.
That's
which
what I was told.
I'm guessing was
Yeah.
a little white lie. Because Microsoft came out at the same day, essentially, when ChatGPT 4 was announced, and said, "Yep, by the way, Bing Chat is based on ChatGPT 4," which kind of you could probably tell. I think people already realized it because Bing could analyze images. I believe people were using it to analyze images, and that's clearly a ChatGPT 4 thing. But yes, those rumors were correct all along, and Microsoft were just telling porcupines, but that's okay. But that, I think, wraps up that wraps up the AI segment. I think hopefully we don't have to talk about AI again for a little bit because I'm tired of it.
Obviously, I love talking about it. I mean, they did. By the way, there was a little bit more, right? They did bump the chats up to 15 turns now and up to 150 per day. And I imagine that number will keep going up as they refine things. But yeah, so it made Bing Chat work in a terminal because why not?
we don't
And of
need
course,
to.
Google. Yeah. We had Ben Wilson do a fun experiment where he asked it to explain complex things that were happening in the news as if you were a monkey.
Yeah.
And it actually simulates talking like a monkey. Let's see, do I have that the sample here? I'll take it up to blow it up. Yeah, so talk to me like we're both simple monkeys and tell me about the recent layoffs made by Microsoft to its ethics and society teams relating to AI. Use terms that monkeys would understand or reply with two paragraphs at the most. It actually did a little bit more than two paragraphs, but said, okay, me Bing, me talk like monkey. Me tried to tell you about big thing that happened in Big Tree where many smart monkeys work. They make magic things in fire and rocks. They call it AI. Some smart monkeys in Big Tree care about good and bad magic. They want to make sure magic things do not hurt other monkeys or tree or animals. They teach other smart monkeys how to make good magic. They have game to play with magic things and see what can go wrong. They call it ethics and society team. But Big Boss Monkey and Big Tree say no more ethics and society team. He say need to cut many monkeys from Big Tree because not enough bananas. He say need to use more magic things from other Big Tree where they make very, very powerful fire and rocks. They call it open AI. He say need to move fast and give magic things to other monkeys who pay bananas. So now no more ethics and society team in Big Tree. Some smart monkeys sad and angry. They say Big Boss Monkey not care about good and bad magic. They say Big Boss Monkey only care about more bananas. They say Big Tree lose good monkeys who know how to make good magic. Me hope this help you understand. Me sorry if I make mistake. Me still learn how to talk like monkey. That is amazing.
That is hilarious. Well done, Bing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, at the very least, it's an entertaining way to learn about complex topics. And we also did a poll, by the way, related to the edge thing I was just mentioning, which was how do people feel about. Some people are complaining about the Bing, having the icon in the taskbar, and it can't be removed. Although I think there is a way to do it somehow, and we'll get an article on that. And so we ran a poll asking people. Of course, people were going to complain about everything on the internet, and it's interesting results. I mean, it's 50.65% think it's too pushy, but then the other 50%, with 36% of it was I think it's a good thing, and the other 13% said I don't care. So it's nearly split basically. So 50% are basically I think it's either a good thing or I don't care, and 50% think it's too pushy.
My opinion on that is I don't mind it being there by default, but it should be easy to remove if you don't want it there. The fact you have to jump into the registry right now to do that is kind of taking the mickey, I think. Although I do think they are working on a way that they're going to add a toggle in settings to turn it off. It's just not there yet, which is kind of annoying.
We do have the article up. It's called "How to Remove the Bing Chat Button from Microsoft Edge," and there's just a step-by-step guide. It's not too complicated, but if it really bothers you, there you go. But you're right. I think they'll probably add a toggle for it at some point. I like it, because it brings up the tool so you can stay within the page you're on, which is really nice versus opening up a separate website. Plus, it has all those tools in there, Insight and Compose, which is very useful. So
right.
Anyway,
we need to take a quick break to thank our sponsor for this week. When it comes to hiring, you need to trust your gut. But what if you could give your gut some help? When you want to find top talent fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. You know, so Indeed sponsored quite a few times now. One of the things we love about Indeed is that Indeed does the hard work for you. You can sponsor a job and boom, Instant Match shows you candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit the job description immediately after you post. So with Instant Match, you can actually start hiring faster than other sites. So you can join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. You can go to indeed.com/WCP to start hiring now. That's indeed.com/WCP. Indeed.com/WCP. Terms and conditions do apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you, Indeed, for sponsoring. We should move on to the next topic real quickly. I just want to slip this in here because this was sort of dropped at the top of the show. We haven't really had a chance to pass it yet. But Microsoft published a blog post titled "A Principled Approach to App Pinning and App Defaults in Windows." Now, this is a very short blog post, curious blog post, where they talk about their long-standing approach to put people in control of their Windows PC experience by ensuring that people are in control of what gets pinned to their desktop, their start menu, and their taskbar, as well as being able to control their default applications, such as their default browser, through consistent, clear, and trustworthy Windows-provided system dialogues and settings. So they say in this blog post that they are committing to ensuring people who use Windows are in control of changes to their pins and their defaults, provide common supported ways for application developers to offer the ability to make their app the default or pin their app to the taskbar. This will provide this will provide users a consistent experience across all apps, and Microsoft apps will use the same common supported methods for pinning and defaults. So I'm assuming this is in response to a lot of fallout Microsoft has had through Windows 11 and defaults. Remember Windows 11 first launched, you could set Edge as default with one click, but every other browser you couldn't. You had to go through a stupid long process to set another browser's defaults. And also, apps can just sort of hijack defaults, and that's always been a thing in Windows. Microsoft seems to be saying here that they're going to create an API or a process for every application to offer itself as a default. You will no longer just have an app that can hijack defaults and whatnot. Every app that wants to present itself as a default will present a native Windows notification, or if it wants to be pinned to the taskbar, same thing. They've got a screenshot here of Microsoft News, for example, saying, hey, News wants to be pinned to your taskbar, and you can accept it or decline that using the notification buttons. So that's curious. Why they decided to post that today, I don't know. But this is coming soon, they say. They're going to start testing this in the Windows Insider dev channel at some point in the future. This isn't shipping today. This is certainly a forward-looking thing. But it is curious that they've announced that that's something they're working on. I do wonder what forced their hand there. But yeah, that is that. We should now move on to the Dell ARM laptop. This is curious because, I feel like we were only just talking about this a few weeks ago. Every OEM, or all the mainstream OEMs now, have shipped Windows on ARM laptops in some capacity. HP has, Lenovo has, and others that I'm forgetting also have. Except for Dell, up until this week, that is. They announced rather quietly the Dell Inspiron 14. It was, basically silent. I just came across it because the Snapdragon Twitter account tweeted about it. But they announced the Dell Inspiron 14. It's nothing really special. It's an Inspiron. It does the job, right? But it's Dell's first Qualcomm-based laptop. So in addition to Intel and AMD, which you can configure it in, it's also available in Qualcomm. I think that makes it the first laptop that's available in all three flavors as well, which is really interesting.
That's interesting.
But it's available with a Snapdragon 8CX Gen 2. So it's technically last gen's Snapdragon flagship processor, but it's still a flagship processor. That was Qualcomm's top of the line for a year and a half up until very recently.
What the Pro X used.
Yeah, it was exactly. It was the Pro X used. There was a number of other laptops used that Dan liked. I think the ThinkPad 13 used it, didn't it, or something like that?
No, that's a Gen 3.
Oh, right, Gen 3. Maybe Lenovo or HP had one with a Gen 2 in it. Anyway, yes, it's a flagship processor, so you must be wondering, I guess it's going to be like $800, $900 starting, right? No. The biggest shock about this laptop to me is that you can buy it brand new from Dell.com right now for $500, $499. That is the cheapest flagship Windows and ARM SoC laptop we've seen yet, I think. And this is the kind of price range I think a lot of people were expecting Windows and ARM to sort of hang around in, right? When it was first announced, like, oh yeah, because of the performance differences, it makes sense for these laptops to be anywhere between $500 and $800. But then all the first lot came in at like $1,000, $1,200. It's like, this is crazy. No one's going to buy this. But we're now finally seeing a $500 flagship Windows and ARM SoC laptop. I wouldn't call the laptop itself a flagship. I don't think it is. It's just run-of-the-mill. No, 1080p screen, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig storage. There's nothing really special about it, but the SoC is really the most special thing about it. The Dell website says it supports. It has an AI neural engine, so it can technically support things like the Windows Studio effects, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I just thought that was shocking that Dell's finally putting Qualcomm in a laptop, and it's this thing, which they didn't announce and didn't make a big deal about. And they've kind of buried it. It's like, nobody look at this. We don't want to talk about it. But yeah, hopefully this means Dell will be willing to put ARM in more stuff going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Dell didn't even send out a PR announcement about this.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, we were literally caught off guard. Qualcomm didn't mention it to us. Maybe other sites were part of that. We weren't, which, says something. Yeah, I don't know. So Inspiron is their like more affordable line.
Yes,
I want a kind of budget, so that makes sense for this, and I'm sure it's pretty solid. We've seen other laptops kind of like this here and there on the more budget end, but this does look like a nice in between, not completely cheap, but also not premium. it looks like a good size. ATX Gen 2 is a really good chip. And yeah, that price for $500, that's actually a really nice price. And I think that's,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, you get the all-day battery life and all that kind of stuff with it. Again, that would be, I think, perfect for people who want. Basically, it's a great alternative to a Chromebook, but it could
Yeah.
run real apps whenever you want. Maybe it won't run, Crisis, but it could run any web browser you want, and it can install apps. It can do Office and all that. And I think for either students, and I don't know if does it even have 5G
I
or
don't think it
4G?
does. No.
Yeah, so they took out the LTE, which makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
the connectivity, because if at $500 you probably don't care about that, and it's a way to bring that price down further. But like that's a cool student laptop, an alternative to Chromebook,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think that performance there would actually be pretty good for especially a younger person,
Battery life
but
apparently
old
good
people
too.
too if they just want an email device.
Yeah. The battery life is reported, well, according to Dell, quite good as well. They say 16 hours, which is pretty not bad. But also, it's really interesting the pricing of this because it makes the. Do you remember the Samsung Galaxy Book Go, which was a Snapdragon 7C
Yes.
laptop? I think that was $399, right, or $349. That
Something like that.
that makes that look like a bad deal because for $100 or $150
Sure.
more, you're getting much better performance, double the RAM. Because remember that entry level Galaxy Book Go was only 4 gigs of RAM. This is 8 gigs of RAM, and I think you get double the storage as well. For $150 more, that's absolutely worth it. Like you should totally go for this one over the Galaxy Book Go, which is interesting because they don't sell that one anymore. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is this is cool.
It's
I
just
think
weird
this is
too
nice.
because I think I was anticipating Dell, if they were going to get into ARM, would have done it in a more premium device. But I
Yeah,
understand why they wouldn't, because as much as we love ARM here, let's be fair, it has exactly taken the Windows world by storm. And said I would actually say that most ARM devices in terms of sales have been pretty much failures, except maybe the Pro X. Um, but they're not, they haven't really won people over. And even I didn't get to review the ThinkPad X13s, which is unfortunate. I mean, I still would like to because I still love that device. But, it's just, we're just not there yet. Maybe with the next gen Nuvia stuff that's supposed to come out, those will be those for
I
the
do.
premium devices.
Yeah, I'd say I do wonder. I think it's fair to say that performance of Windows and ARM these days is okay for most people. It's only not good for people who review computers because they have the context for what
Yeah.
counts as good performance. And that would also add to why Dell didn't sort of announce this laptop. This is an Inspiron 14. It's their mainstream. This is the one they probably sell lots and lots of to just normal people who aren't interested in technology. And those people aren't going to complain about it being Windows on ARM because they don't really notice the difference. They're not going to say it's slow because let's be honest, Windows on ARM isn't really slow, and you can only tell that it's slow if you have it compared side by side with something that is more powerful. But if you just have that on its own and you aren't interested in technology, you have no context as to what Intel or AMD is or what they have to offer, you're just buying this, then I think this laptop is going to be great for you. And that's probably why Dell put it in here and didn't announce it to the press, because press would just be like, oh, it's Windows and ARM, it's not as good as the Intel one, buy that.
Yeah. And like, I kind of get that. That said, either Dell or Qualcomm should know their target audiences like us, and
Yeah, sure.
hey, heads up, if you're interested in this device. In fact, we'll send you one to do photos, and you could have, like, we would have helped.
Yeah.
It would have helped
Yeah.
the announcement. We wouldn't have made it worse. And it turns out that story did really well on the site, which
still doing really
signals
well.
a lot of people are interested in that $500 price point for something. So it's like, I don't know, Dell, maybe reach out to us there. Anywho, we'll move on quickly to I'll talk about briefly with HP's Dragonfly Pro, which is a really fascinating kind of device. So I had this for a couple weeks ago, and it's had a little bit of a rough launch. This is co-engineered with AMD. It's an AMD specific HP Dragonfly. Now, HP has worked with AMD before. In fact, I've given some really good reviews to some previous devices that they've had. But this is the first in the Dragonfly series, and Dragonfly keeps expanding. So this is Dragonfly Pro, not to be confused with the Elite Dragonfly, which is Dan's favorite laptop. That's an Intel-based one where you can get 5G in, and it's also significantly more expensive. That laptop weighs 2.2 pounds. This one weighs 3.5 pounds. So it's a big difference. Um, on paper, and even when you look at this device, it's not exciting. It's got a full HD touch display. It's a good display, 100% sRGB. Uh, Relatively thin bezels. They're balanced bezels too. It's a comes in a shimmering kind of black, sparkle black, or ceramic white, which looks nice. It's got quad speakers, two in the top deck, two on the bottom edge, which is good. It has a haptic touchpad, which of course I love. Although this isn't made by Sensel, this is apparently made in-house by HP. It's fine. It's not my favorite touchpad, but it works. I don't have any issues with it. I just like Sensel's haptics feel better to me, but it's kind of cool they did it here. And but the star of the show is going to be the AMD Ryzen processor. So it's an AMD Ryzen 7736U. That's brand new. That was just announced in January. This is their Ryzen 7 series for mobile, obviously. It's the U series, so it can range between 15 and 28 watts. And they put a 65 watt hour battery into this. I'm not really sure why it weighs heavier. My guess is, well, one, it's got a touch screen, which definitely adds weight. And the chassis materials feel... if you ever pick up the Elite Dragonfly, it almost feels like a toy because it's so light and thin almost. It's so, because that's just the materials they use. It's not, it's very like resilient, but it just feels that way. This feels like a tank. It feels a little bit more like a ThinkPad in terms of the build quality, which is really good. It feels premium, but that's part of the weight. And so you gain the processor, and the processor has been pretty impressive. It's compared to a 2-year-old Core i7 H series. So that's a 45 watt chip. It will beat that. So that was used in the HP Spectre X360 16, which I reviewed, and that's a great laptop too. So this is faster than that, but it's in a 14-inch, traditionally what we call an ultrabook type design, right? So that's pretty awesome. You can get that kind of performance. It doesn't, and it can beat the 12th gen P series sometimes as well. I don't know about the 13th gen though. And then of course it's using Radeon graphics, and those are better. It's better than the Iris Xe internal graphics. So you can do some light gaming with this. Not that I really tested it, but it's decent graphics, I should say, but still integrated. So it's not a discrete thing. And the value really comes down here to the battery life, which is good. I was, a little bit surprised, but we did a battery rundown test. So synthetic PC Mark 10 Modern Office, it runs through a loop of using Word, PowerPoint, simulates a web video call, does photo and video editing, web scrolling, and then takes breaks in between to simulate a person using it. So it's not like using apps 24/7. It's trying to pretend like a person's really running these things. And it got 14.5 hours on that at 150 nits of brightness. That's up there. It's not the best battery life because some of the yogas actually do slightly better, believe it or not. But it's up there. Like, it's definitely... And in my real world experience, I was getting between 8 and 10 hours. And that was with the battery rundown report, which reflects the actual usage. So it's actually a really good battery life. The weird thing they did here was they did a side keys on the right-hand side. There's 4 of them. And this laptop does stuff that no other laptop has done before, which is it has an app there called My HP. And when you buy this laptop, for 1 year, you get 24/7 support, which is kind of cool, but also weird because it's like, well, what's going to go wrong with this laptop, right? But the idea is one of the buttons you hit, it launches My HP. The second button you launches to the My HP help chat, and you can connect with a chat or phone call with someone who's on 24/7 duty to help you. And they can see like the number of your laptop and all the information about it, so they know exactly which one and help you troubleshoot things. And then there's a third button which launches into My HP for the camera settings, where you can manipulate background blur, add a background. You can control how much it's cropping in, if it's tracking, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a fourth button that is user programmable. You can use it for whatever it's for. Now, some of this is kind of interesting, but like the 3 buttons basically all go into the My HP app. It's just 2 of them go into a different section of it. So that's weird. It's not like it's launching separate apps that like the camera app. It's launching the chat. It's not doing that. It's launching the same app and just then hops to the other section, which weird. The app also takes around 13 seconds to actually load. So when you hit that button, you feel like something broke because you're like, and like, is this thing going to come on? And it finally comes up. So that can be fixed in software. And I can tell you, it definitely feels like the software here was rushed to get out the door for the launch period. I'm confident they'll probably fix it, but that was a little strange. It also made the backspace key, of course, like half the size, which I know a lot of people don't like. And I didn't have much issue with it, but I could see where people would have an issue with it. That said, typing on it has been great. It's a really nice keyboard. The touchpad is huge. It's haptic. It's got a 5-megapixel full HD camera. The screen is only the full HD 16 by 10 aspect, but it's a good screen. Actually, colors look great. They said 400 nits of brightness. I measured 425 nits, so it actually goes significantly brighter. It's not light at 3.5 pounds, but it's not heavy either, and it feels really sturdy and rugged. I feel like this laptop, as I described in the review, it doesn't do anything exceptional, but everything about it is like a solid B+. And that's actually kind of rare sometimes to get that in a laptop where everything is really good about it or really solid. And I feel like this laptop, you would use it and it would just be very reliable for 3 years. Like, it would just be the same experience, which is a good one. You're getting a fast processor. You can get up to, it only comes in a few configurations. It's minimum 16 gigs of RAM, which is actually really fast RAM too. It's DDR5. It's one of the fastest ones. You can get 16 gigs of RAM, up to 32 gigs. And you can get either 512 gigs of storage or 1 terabyte of storage. And that's the only options besides the color black and white. But you only get that one CPU in it. There's also a Chromebook version, but who cares about that? It does have Windows Hello, IR recognition. There's a lot of AI stuff kind of missing from it. Like, it doesn't have the human presence detection stuff. It doesn't have Dolby Atmos. It doesn't have Dolby Vision. Like, it doesn't have like a lot of the frills that you see in the Intel laptops. Like, HP even does this on its own Intel laptops, where not only can it detect when you're from the computer and lock and unlock for security reasons, but it can detect if someone's overlooking your shoulder, and it'll let you know, hey, someone's looking at your screen, which is kind of a cool security thing. None of that's here. And it only has 3 ports, all Type-C, so that's kind of annoying. 2, though, are Thunderbolt 3, so that's different. Many laptops don't get Thunderbolt 3. Granted, Thunderbolt 4 is out, but still nice. The other Type-C is literally just for power or display, but can't handle data. So that's weird. No micro SD, no HDMI, no Type A. So that's kind of strange. Oh, and no headphone jack. So that's a little bit bizarre. Who is this made for? Well, they're targeting freelancers. So basically people who are mobile and freelance, presumably on web and creativity and stuff like that. And to be fair, I think that is like a good target audience. Like, I kind of wrote at the end of the review that, like, honestly, if like Future wanted to give people at Windows Central and other websites, this computer to work on for work, which we do, they have lockdown computers, this would actually be a really good computer for that. I think it's actually, a lot of people would be happy using this. But it's got just some kind of, like I said, just some kind of weird issues. But you can go read the full review on it. It's a fun. I actually liked it way more than I expected, mostly because it just works and it's just reliable, and the performance is good and great battery life. I don't know, not much else to say about it. We also did have a couple other reviews that went up. We have the Heatgate, hopefully I'm pronouncing that, by Edifier, G5000 review. These are monster speakers with RGB that you can use for your PC or laptop, which is, it's kind of fun, actually. It's interesting. They're big behemoth speakers. They weigh 18 pounds, so these things are solid, and they're made from wood too, not just plastic, which is kind of cool. We also reviewed the Lenovo Idea Center all-in-one using an Intel Core i5 27-inch. And that actually got a really good review from Rebecca Spear, who gave it 4.5 out of 5. And it's if you're looking for a solid 27-inch all-in-one computer, it's nothing fancy. You're not going to game on this, right? This is meant for like a family computer that's just in the living room or dining area, whatever, where everybody can share a computer and do webcam stuff and everything like that. There you go. We also reviewed the Razer Edge, finally, the Razer's handheld Android device. That was reviewed by Zachary Body. They said was it? I get 3.5 out of 5. So this was kind of interesting. The cons are display aspect ratio, size and corners results in wasted space. I saw that complaint before. The Kishi V2 Pro absolutely decimates standby battery life. I can confirm that. The Razer Edge, if you just leave it on your couch, after about 2 or 3 days, it'll just be completely dead, which is kind of a weird thing. And it has to do with the controller system. If you actually just have the tablet part, it's fine. But for some reason, the Kishi doesn't have like a standby mode. Software experience is the bare minimum with the Razer Nexus app. That's true. There's really not much to it. And it's only available in the US, which, to be fair, Razer's a little experimenting here. So, they're taking a more cautious approach. Still, the pros, its powerful internals, ensures fantastic performance in a variety of games. Its colorful, fast AMOLED display looks and feels amazing. Removable Kishi V2 Pro controller makes the Edge more versatile and with effort, and when it works, the virtual controller is great. I tested the 5G version. I was surprised that even on 2 bars of 5G, I had no problem gaming with Xbox Cloud and even GeForce Now. Sure, things will get pixelated here and there once in a while, but didn't actually affect the gameplay. I was playing with GeForce Now Destiny 2 with 2 bars on 5G, and that's not even the millimeter wave type 5G, which is their really fast one. This is just the standard 5G. And I was able to play Destiny 2, which was pretty wild on this little device here. So it's a cool one, but if you want to go read the review, Zachary did a really bang-up, in-depth review of that. We also have reviews up for Resident Evil 4 review. Jez gives it a very good rating, says that it feels like the next gen is finally here. He gave it 4.5 out of 5. We also reviewed Destiny 2 Lightfall review. That's the latest update to Destiny 2. Only 3 out of 5. It's a return to mediocrity. So if you're a big Destiny 2 fan, I can't believe I just hopped into Destiny 2 again, and it's just like so overwhelming, the amount of story to that game that they built out. I do like Destiny 2 a lot. Just wish I had more time for it. But I think that kind of does it for all the reviews. I think we have a lot, that's for sure. And I think we have a couple more going up this weekend. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, Jennifer Young did review her perfect Xbox Cloud gaming controller. So if you have a phone and you want something, the Turtle Beach Atom is surprisingly great. She gave it 4.5 out of 5. And that's a cool looking device. It's yellow and black. It looks kind of weirdly chunky, but she says it's really good. And it's only you get it for $75 at Best Buy. So she liked that. And I forgot to mention Ben Wilson. He did review the Alienware AW2723DF. What a great name it is. It's a gaming monitor. It's 27 inches, IPS, 240 hertz. And yeah, he fell in love with that monitor. I can tell you that much because the display on it, it's got super thin bezels and great refresh rate, all that stuff. So go check out those reviews, as the team put a lot of hard work in there, and some really cool stuff coming out there. Next week, I'll have the Galaxy Book 3 Pro review. Maybe the Razer Blade 16, but that may be pushing it. We'll see if I can do that in time. We have a few other reviews coming out next week as well. And Zach, you have Surface Studio 2's. Oh, no. What was it? What are we up to now? Surface Studio 3. 2 Plus.
2 Plus.
Yeah, I've got 2 Plus review coming. So pay attention for that one. That should be kind of cool as well. All in all, good stuff. Anything else we missed for news this week?
I do not think so. I think you have covered basically everything. It was outside of AI. It was a very slow week, and that's a shame.
Yeah. March, I guess it's going to be like that. I know for people curious, Surface Laptop Studio 2, no ETA on that. I wouldn't be surprised April 15, maybe. I'm just throwing that date out there just off the top of my head, but that seems like a good time. Microsoft might do a spring refresh on Surface.
On a
but we
Saturday?
Really
I don't think so, Daniel.
Oh, okay. So then it won't be. Okay, so I just like April 15 for some reason. Then, well, let's see. Okay, I'll actually make an actual guess. I'm going to say, I think you usually like to do it on Tuesdays. April 11th.
I would say April 18th.
Okay.
The week after.
The week after, fair enough. Well, we'll cover there for 50% of the month, at least on Tuesdays, if that's true. Now they're going to shift it by one day just to screw us over. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. That'll be exciting. I keep telling people, if you're interested in a laptop, the Laptop Studio 2, I think is going to be the one to get. I'm very excited about that. still love the original, but hold out for the second one if you can, because it's going to be a massive performance jump and definitely worth the wait. Other than that, we'll turn to Q&A with the audience. So if you guys have questions you want to ask, start firing them off now. We'll try to answer them. Other than that, if you're listening to this recorded, of course, we do this live Fridays, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel, where you can watch us live on video and also interact with the audience and talk to us. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, R-U-B as in boy, I-N-O, and Zach at Z-A-C-B-O-W-D-E-N. Hit us up there for questions. We are still working on the audio issues that we've had on my end. We don't know exactly what's causing it. Maybe it'll be better this week. Maybe not. We'll find out. Hopefully if it is. If not, hit me up on Twitter or on my, now I'm forgetting the name of the
Mastodon? Yeah,
Mastodon. I knew it began with an M. I was saying Megalodon, but Megalodon's the name of the Android app that I use. But you can hit me up there as well. But other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wicked. So if anyone has any questions, now's the time to ask them. Techosaurus Rex says, last year it was in May. You're right. Maybe it will be May this year as well. Probably will be May, actually.
Yeah.
Does Zach have a Surface Laptop Studio 2 for review yet? How much time do reviewers get before the embargo lifts? I do not have a Laptop Studio 2. I probably won't be reviewing that. That will probably be Dan. And also, it's usually 2 weeks on a good year. Recent times, it's been less than a week, which isn't great.
Yeah, Microsoft often, sometimes does like 5 days. Sometimes it's pretty. But luckily, there's not going to be a ton to that review because it's going to be an internal upgrade. It's going to be focusing just on the CPU and GPU performance improvements.
Do you think 23H2 will be an enablement package or OS swap? I still think it'll be an enablement package, but it could also be an OS swap now that Dev Channel is testing the 23,000 range. They could very easily wrap that up as an RTM and ship that as the next update. Though I don't think they will. I don't know if it makes sense. We'll have to wait and see. It will depend what's in the 23H2 update. What is a MateBook? Is that Huawei? I don't think I can buy those in Canada. I'm not sure if they're available in Canada. They're available here in the UK. Somebody was mentioning the MateBook E. The MateBook E is great for £500, though it is with outdated specs now. I think it's like an 11th gen Intel Core i3 or i5, which isn't the most up-to-date. What's your opinion on the rebooted Dev Channel? We talked about this last week, but essentially I think it makes sense because it's release preview, beta, and dev are testing Windows 11 features and updates. Canary is testing early code for the next version of the Windows platform coming in 2024. So that's what that is. I think it makes sense. And yeah. Would you expect Microsoft to change their stance on the boot camp for our Mac sometime soon? I don't think that's a Microsoft choice. That's an Apple choice. Apple needs to build drivers for Windows and ARM and re-enable Boot Camp on the Mac to support installing it as onto the hardware directly. Microsoft has already greenlit VMware. What's it called on Mac? VMware Workstation. That's on Windows. Whatever it's called on Parallels even. They've already greenlit Windows 11 on ARM via virtualization on Mac OS. That's already a thing. It's official. Microsoft does support it technically. So at this point it's on Apple. Apple could very easily build its own drivers for Windows and ARM and then reintegrate Boot Camp into Mac OS and allow users to install it, but they haven't, so that's on them. Do you think the Android team at Microsoft is prepping for a mobile store and a bigger push into Android from Microsoft once the ABK deal closes? That seems to be the word on the rumor mill. They do. People seem to keep saying that Microsoft is interested in building its own mobile app store, and that would be very interesting if they go ahead with that. Now, I don't know if it will be gaming only because the ABK deal is pivotal to this effort apparently. If it's gaming only, then I don't really know what the point of it is because I'm not downloading a store just to download games. I'm not doing that. But if it's an actual app store where, Facebook or Twitter or other app developers can submit their own apps to, that's really interesting because then Microsoft can start building out its own alternative to Google Play services. And that's possibly how Microsoft wins back mobile. Because Android, yes, is Google's, but Android is open source. And if Microsoft is able to build out a marketplace, an Android marketplace that's actually able to rival Google's, then Microsoft can start going to Android makers and going, hey, instead of bundling with Google Play, why don't you bundle with us? And then suddenly Microsoft has its own ecosystem on mobile, and then they can fork Android and they can start doing their own version of Android. And oh my God, it's now Windows Phone again. Amazing. That's the plan. I guarantee it. I mean, could you imagine if Samsung was like, the next Galaxy will ship with Microsoft Store, and this assumes the Microsoft Store actually has the apps that people want. That would be a big deal. That would be a really big deal. And Samsung and Microsoft are tight. They're good friends these days. So maybe it's all towards this, working towards this plan. And it could tie in with Windows, the subsystem for Android. Yeah, it could, because see what Microsoft needs to do. And I've said this before. Microsoft needs to allow app developers to submit Android apps to the Microsoft Store. Get rid of Amazon. I don't know why Amazon's involved here. They don't need to be involved. Just let Android developers submit apps directly to the Microsoft Store. I don't see why you wouldn't let them do that. And then you could just bring that catalog to Android. Because you've got 1 billion Windows users. There's already 1 billion people that Android app devs will want to target. And so they are more likely to come to your store that you can now pick up and install on Android. Anyway, that's how I think.
Any reviews on the HP Omen 16? We were offered that, but during the time we were transitioning our teams and was just not good timing. But that's a really interesting and good laptop. I may reach out, and we have our teams now in place for reviews. So I may reach out to HP again to see if in the coming weeks if we can get that maybe again, because I think that's actually a good laptop for us to look at. So stay tuned.
Any reason why the Outlook web app is not available on my Windows Store yet? I think it's hidden in the Windows Store right now. You can probably do a Google search for it. If you search for Outlook Preview Microsoft Store, you may find it that way. All right, any more questions? After Activision's acquisition, Microsoft Mobile App Store would make more sense. Games draw people into mobile app stores, and the rest big-time apps will follow. Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, the more in there, the better, of course. And having first-party offerings there will also make it stronger. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. That would be very interesting if they do go ahead and start competing with the Google Play Store, because Samsung's tried. They have their own Galaxy Store, and that hasn't set the world on fire. That said, Samsung's not trying to buy $69 billion worth of games to add to it. So
when I go to the the Bing.com page? Oh no, when I open my new tab page, it has sometimes they do the video backgrounds, which are kind of cool, and it's just giraffes looking at you slowly chewing. But like in video form, which is just kind of cool. They're doing cool stuff with their design stuff on Bing. And I still like the little cartoons today, little shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day. I like those things. Google does this. You go to google.com, they put the little cartoons in their search thing, right?
They're called Doodles. Microsoft? Google Doodle,
yeah, Doodles. Sure. Right. Yeah.
Microsoft Loop Workspaces app release /progress /anything about it. I think there's some Microsoft Loop announcement coming next week. I don't know if it's specifically Workspaces. I don't know if that's an addition or if that's just Microsoft Loop. But there's something coming next week, I believe. I've not been following this thing, so I'm not really checked in on it. But I have heard that next week you may hear more about Microsoft Loop. Whether that includes Workspaces or not, I don't know.
Someone's asking, do you need to have the dev beta to get the phone link for iOS? No. It's apparently just A/B testing.
It's in A/B testing, but I think you do have to be in any of the
one of the insider channels.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least one of
any
them.
Of them.
But yeah, it can be any of them. Let's see if mine's changed. Oh, I can link my iPhone to mine. Oh, snap.
Woo! Oh, too bad you need Bluetooth.
I have Bluetooth,
Oh yeah, you
luckily,
fixed it.
but
I thought, yeah.
yeah.
Does Microsoft still have any plans for Seashell? The technology that was Seashell is basically in use on Windows 11 today. It's it's obviously evolved quite a bit since then. But if you're referring to multiple different shells in one product, not really. Though that could change, I guess, but I don't think so. I think that vision is dead. I think Microsoft has one UI and is happy to build that UI out for different form factors rather than having different composers for different hardware devices. But the idea of a modern shell is already more or less shipping in Windows 11. They're slowly but surely updating it. The taskbar's all new, Action Center, File Explorer is slowly but surely getting there. Yeah. All right, last call for questions, I think. Then it's time to head off. So if you have any questions, get them in now. I need to rename this. Let's hope your audio is better this week. Did you turn off broadcast?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that will fix it. We will see.
We'll see.
If that doesn't fix it, I genuinely don't know what's wrong.
Yep.
I just don't know. All right, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. So with that, we will head off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.